Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, January 14th, 2022. A lot to discuss. We first had our first unconfirmed Google search ranking algorithm of 2022 this year. It seems like Google's manual actions in Google Search Console are backed up on Google's end. Google's said that they could share more information, more specifics about core updates, but they can't. More into that later. IndexNow is now co-sharing URLs with partners and so much more. So definitely stay tuned. And of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor, SEMrush. Thank you, SEMrush, so much for sponsoring. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. If you're looking to sponsor, definitely let me know. SEMrush is a really loved SEO tool set. They actually just hired Marcus Tober, who founded Search Metrics years and years ago, a competing tool. So it looks like they're growing really well and doing really good things. So definitely check them out at semrush.com. Okay, so first up, I reported that on January 11th, 1/11, that Google seems to have rolled out some type of unconfirmed Google search ranking algorithm update. Google has not confirmed it. Whatever that chatter was, it started around late on the 10th, big on the 11th, died out on the 12th. There was definitely a lot of significant chatter around that time period, but then on the 12th, it was nothing. It went silent. The tracking tools pretty much all picked it up. It wasn't the size of a core update, but it definitely was significant. I'm not sure what it was. Google has not confirmed it. But if you did see any type of blip or change on the 11th or around the 11th in regards to your search results in Google, you were definitely not alone. Google's Danny Sullivan said, and this is like basically based on a response to somebody complaining about their rankings not doing well, that basically the manual actions in Google Search Console are significantly delayed. Danny said, we apologize for the delay in processing the reconsideration. We've had a backlog and now we cleared the action. So basically this person was complaining that their website was no longer ranking well. They contacted Google, they had a manual action. Google never responded to that. Google's being evil. And although there's a whole story around that, I didn't cover it. I included the story there. Basically manual action had nothing to do with that site not ranking well. That manual action was around a penalty around not trusting links on that site. So links outbound from that website. It wasn't about ranking or anything like that. In any event, it just showed us that the manual actions were delayed. So if you do have manual actions, you're not alone. They are definitely delayed. We've seen requests from October. Rob P shared, Robzilla, Mr. Robzilla on Twitter shared that he has a manual action for one of his clients on October 15th, still not resolved. Marie Haynes posted that she has manual action for several clients, waiting still 3 to 6 months for a response. So there are manual actions that are delayed. You are not alone. Keep that in mind. This was interesting. So Google had a search off the record podcast. Love them. Some of them are better than others. This one was probably better than others because when Gary goes off and talks about what he really feels about, it's really, really fun and interesting to listen to. So basically Gary said, John kind of like leaded him that way. What do you think about core updates? And do you think we should announce core updates? And Gary's like, if I basically talk about this, I'll be fired. He ended up talking about it, of course, because that's Gary, which I love. And he basically said, I don't think we should announce them if we're not going to give any more information about them. He's like, we can give more specific information. I assume maybe, I don't know, the December or January or May or whatever the core update might be, instead of naming it by a month, you can't name it by a month, but you can be more specific. You could say this core update targeted these types of quality metrics or those types of quality metrics. And Gary seems to want to share that information or not share any information at all. And John's basically like, well, we can't share the specifics. And Gary understands that, although Gary wants to share the specifics. But Gary's like, if we can't share specifics, why just state the obvious that there was an update? And John's like, well, people want to know for sure that there was an update. And I agree with that, but I would love for Google to share more specifics. Like maybe SEOs for this core update should focus more on, I don't know, the content on the page or the links to their pages or whatever it might be. Just give us some more hints. Because I do think, obviously, Google tweaks their algorithms with these updates. It's not these are not just data refreshes. These are actual algorithm tweaks to specific quality measurements of what a website should be doing. And when they release these updates, they know what they're focused on more than others. And with that, it would be very interesting to see Google talk more about it. Anyway, it was an interesting debate. Definitely take a listen to it if you want to. On the Microsoft Bing side, Microsoft announced that their IndexNow sharing protocol from IndexNow.org now has a bunch of other features. One is, when it launched, it wasn't co-sharing URLs. It was supposed to, but it wasn't live yet. Now, as of this week, as of 2 days ago, when you share a URL when you ping IndexNow protocol with a URL, either through Bing, Yandex, or IndexNow.org, it would automatically co-share that URL with the other search engines. So if you go to Bing and you submit that URL through IndexNow, Yandex will get it automatically instantly. That's happening today now. Second announcement was that you can now do this at api.indexnow.org. You don't only have to do it. Well, that wasn't supported. You weren't able to do it at indexnow.org. Now you are. That's new. And finally, they also announced that 80,000 websites are now using it, which seems kind of low because just at the end of November, Cloudflare announced that 60,000 websites turned it on. So it seems like a low number, although we reported last week that there's a new WordPress plugin they built to make it easier to do it. So hopefully that will grow and more sites will use it. If Google does adopt it, which they're looking into, it will explode and everybody will use it. This is interesting. John Mueller said that content that's fluff, that has a lot of fluff in it, makes it hard for search engines to understand and thus obviously rank. And then all the SEOs go off about, what about recipes? It's full of fluff. You have a recipe that talks about how to make a brownie or something, and it goes through the history of that person's family. They traveled here, they traveled there. Nothing about the recipe, but then they get to the recipe later because that's what Google likes to rank. Google likes to rank fluff. It's right now, that's how the algorithm works. I wish it didn't. I wish Google liked to rank content that just got to the point and gave the searcher what they want right away. But Google likes to rank fluff. All that panning around where you might have the answer right at the top, you might have the answer at the bottom, you might have the answer in the middle to the query, but Google likes to rank all that fluffy content that's all around it. And I don't think anybody could argue with that. So I just find that funny that John Mueller would say that. Of course, if the fluff is completely disassociated with the content, completely, I guess maybe that makes it confusing, but I don't know. We ran a poll. First, Tim Sulo ran a poll from Ahrefs asking, will you pay money to get links in 2022? Please be honest, he said. And then somebody spammed the poll, so I reran the poll, got about, 770 something results, and it shows that a lot of SEOs will be paying for links in 2022, even though it's against Google's Webmaster guidelines to buy and pay for links. 42.5%, the results a little bit more like this. 53% said they will not pay for links in 2022, but 47% said they will pay for links in 2022. I guess link buying still works, or it seems to work for some people in their heads. On that note, we have another thing that we covered before, but I figure since we're on the link topic, Google basically said links have to be on an index page to be indexed. And even when that page is indexed and Google's able to index those links and count those links, sometimes Google will be like, I'm not counting that link, sorry. So even if you're buying links from a page that is indexed, although you're not able to tell if it's indexed unless you go against Google's terms of service and scrape their search results, that's another thing. But if the page is indexed and the link is thus indexed, you still don't know if Google's counting it because Google can ignore those links. And we kind of go off on that topic. Definitely take a look at that post as well. And then we talk about the Disavow file. And back in the old days when Matt Cutts kind of announced it, he basically said you should use it as Machete. Like, just go disavow the whole entire domain name. Just disavow everything. And not to use it with a fine-tooth comb, he said, back in 2020, I think 2012, basically 10 years ago. Matt Cutts said, don't use the domain disavow link tool on a URL by URL basis, use it on a domain name basis. So if you don't like links that you have from a domain name, just disavow the whole domain name. And John Mueller said sometimes it makes sense to just disavow the whole domain if you don't trust it. Of course, John Mueller has said numerous times he doesn't think it's worth any effort putting into the disavow file. Do other things with your time, but if you do use it, just do it on the domain name level. Just a reminder, and this is pretty cool, and people forget this, the search quality raters guidelines that Google published was not designed for us, for SEOs. They were designed for the search quality raters. Search quality raters are people Google employs through a contractor, not direct Googlers, to rate how well they like the search results. And that information is then fed back, not to the algorithm, but to the engineers at Google program human beings to then evaluate those search results. And John Mueller basically tweeted, the quality raters guidelines are not guidelines for SEOs. And that's true. They were originally designed specifically and still are designed specifically for those quality raters to judge the results, although there's tons of great information for SEOs to learn from that. And Google only released them publicly in 2015 because they kept getting leaked. Google would not have released these quality rating guidelines if they were not leaked. They decided, you know what, let's go ahead and release it to the public. It's being leaked all the time. And they're really, really valuable for SEOs to understand where Google's going towards, what Google wants to rank in the search results. But to ask Google to make changes to them for SEO reasons, it's not going to happen. There's a poll Alan Kent from Google posted asking SEOs, are you confident in recommending or giving advice around planning strategies for Google Discover? And the results are pretty good, meaning that they seemed honest. 12.5% said they are confident, 26% they're only confident or only will give advice if they're pressed to do so, if they're forced to do so. And the majority, 61.5%, said they have no idea if they could go ahead and give that advice. Truth is, Google Discover is all over the place. It's hard to go ahead and give advice. There are some practical guidelines you could give about showing up in Google Discover, but there's no guarantee that you'll ever show up in there. Another survey published asked SEOs, what are you going to go ahead and focus on your resources on in 2022? Aleda Solis asked this question and got over 450 responses. And most people said content. 55% said they're going to focus their year on content. 23.5% said on technical SEO. 17% on link building, and others said other things. So let's keep that in mind. Seems about right. So a little tidbit for you. Do not, again, repeat, do not block your site from users who are in slower internet regions or countries. Just because maybe, I don't know, some country has really slow internet and your core web vital metrics might suffer from that, your crux data might suffer from that, thus you think your page experience score will drop and then your rankings will drop. That's not going to happen. The page experience update is not a strong signal. Google's still going to rank you if you have poor page experience results. Do not block whole countries because of that. And John Mueller made a very good point. If your score is dropping that much because you're blocking a region, then that region is very popular to your website. And thus you're blocking users who are going to your website more often than not and maybe not converting anymore because of that. So keep that in mind. Maybe speed up your website, do other things, but do not block users for that. Google My Business Profiles or Google Business Profiles made a change now for security purposes, basically saying if you add a new manager or a new owner to that property, to that profile, that new manager or new owner, that user type, will have to wait 7 days prior to making changes to that profile. I think this must be a security measurement to make sure that somebody adds somebody by accident, they can't go ahead and make changes without giving them a 7-day period to change that. Google is testing trending videos in the mobile search results. I think this actually launched last year, but a lot of people are seeing it now. It's pretty cool across a lot of platforms. This was spotted by Kushal. And here's some screenshot of that if you want to take a look at that. Pretty cool to see that. Google's also testing web stories as opposed to YouTube videos for the NFL result games. This was spotted by Morty. Here's some screenshots of that. Google Ads launched a new Disapproved Ads Auditor tool, which is basically a GitHub resource for coders to actually implement this Python script. So if you do want to quickly be able to flag, discover, and automatically even remove disapproved ads, you could use this script to do that for your Google Ads thing. And we saw a poll by Cyrus Shepard who basically showed that lots of results, I think well over 1,000 results, that about 90% of SEOs are vaccinated. Found that pretty interesting. Of course, SEOs are very analytical, very data-driven. So I guess most SEOs use that to decide on what to do. And it seems like 90% of SEOs, at least in the Twitter poll, which has a lot of responses, said they're vaccinated. Any event, thank you so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. Again, thanks to SEMrush for sponsoring. I hope everybody has a safe, healthy weekend. Again, today is Friday, January 14th, 2022. My name again is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Everyone, be well, be safe. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.